Hello, Meoni here, and welcome back to another video. This time, I wanted to make a speculation video. So, Live Letter 68 just happened this last weekend, and honestly, it was phenomenal on many levels. My goodness, look at that high-res kitty cat. But no, we're not here today to talk about how smexy it is to see the rugged Ro in his stoic rock-faced high-res glory. No, I want to speculate on where the next deep dungeon will be located, what it might be, and how it might fit into Endwalker. During Live Letter 68 then we got a date of 6.3, not necessarily on 6.3, it could be a sub-patch of that, most likely, but 6.3 is what we've given as a rough date of when we can expect that, which is quite a far reach from where we are right now, obviously prior to 6.1's release. But at least we got our confirmation that a deep dungeon number 3 is on its way, and we can get excited about it and speculate as to what it is. This then, after the feedback we players gave after Shadowbringers didn't actually give us one, which honestly, the more I think about it, was probably the one thing that expansion really missed. It wasn't a detriment, I still loved that expansion, but it would have been so nice just to have one, I think. In a day and age, especially in Endwalker now, where we have 19 jobs, I had to think then, and no, I don't count you, Blue Mage, nobody loves you. Okay, maybe we do, but they really need to give you more content. 19 jobs worth of leveling, at least, of relevance at endgame. It would be pretty awesome to be able to do that in another deep dungeon scenario. They did, however, obviously buff experience that you get in Endwalker leveling dungeons, so it's actually not that bad for alt job leveling at all, and I've done quite a few already, and some people have already got all of their jobs to 90 already. But still, deep dungeons, at least in my personal opinion, are pretty awesome. I watch people like AngelusDemonus on Twitch and YouTube, and Ximoka on Twitch, people who smash Palace of the Dead solo challenges and make Heaven on High look like it's just a child's plaything. When I try and do it though, I just die horribly. The leaderboards are exciting to watch people race up, and similarly to how other games have PvE challenges and world firsts in that challenge mode content, or just for speedrun fastest times, it's just exciting to witness and sometimes to be a part of as well. It's always fun to have a challenge in front of you, I think. And whilst I don't personally fit into any of those hardcore categories, I'm just a casual potato really, deep dungeons are incredibly fun once you get into them. Plus, I kind of like the shiny glam ether weapons, and that's got me even more frothing at the mouth in anticipation of what the next glow could look like. In Bent Branch Meadows then is the original OG Deep Dungeon Palace of the Dead, focused around a pretty awesome and surprisingly dark storyline. It was the first time we saw something akin to a challenge mode setting for the game, with plenty of RNG to keep things interesting in a kind of roguelike way. Heaven on High came out in Stormblood, and with it came a little bit of storyline. Not that I can fully remember it right now, but I think I remember something about Allegan tech and people trying to defend it or something. It's all a bit hazy and thin unless I missed some kind of big chunk of story, but it was really fun. But the point is that both the current deep dungeons, both of them, don't necessarily need to be deep in storyline. You could just be like, here's a hole in the ground, it has monsters in it, go fight them, and then build some storyline around that. So there's lots of potentiality for speculation here. That being said, since Endwalker is very seemingly fixated around Elpis and the story around the Ancients, of course with your player character heavily involved in that, I would not be surprised if a deep dungeon is located in Elpis. Perhaps a deep dungeon with like every floor filled with experimental creations and other concepts. This is pretty much the idea behind Pandemonium as a raid series, I know, but there is room for an archive of concepts or something like that. This is one of the theories I have. The other theory of where the next deep dungeon could be is Radzat Han or Sharlayan. So Radzat Han is steeped in lore, most of which we still don't really know, But after seeing the sort of Uznia-style statues and designs and many blank doors within that city as corridors just lead into nothingness, it could easily be hiding sort of like an underground city section that we just don't know about. Perhaps even lost to time that only the Sartrap knew of that's now gone. That would be a solid guess, I think. You could fill it full of strange, weird creatures never before seen in centuries or maybe thousands of years, haunting some of these lost catacombs, and we could be the first to explore this labyrinth on behalf of Vitra, sort of like telling us that there's weird stuff in there and we don't know, so we're going to go check it out because we're the strongest person and we kind of help them. That would make sense, right? We've earned the right to kind of be the first explorer in there. The other idea then is of Sharlayan, and that's a fairly, a fairly obvious one, I think. They kept the entire underbelly of Sharlayan's Labyrinthos zone hidden for centuries from people, including their own people. If any group of people have hidden the biggest secrets in the entirety of Atheris' history, it's the Sharlayan people, especially with the Ethereal Sea as well. Specifically the Council of Elders. Those guys are incredibly shady. You know, I don't know all of the things that they know, and I don't think we want to know. The first time they unveiled Labyrinthos actually as a zone with, you know, concept art originally, way before the expansion came out, I remember personally mentioning on a couple of videos how I thought that that was the name of a new deep dungeon or something hiding a deep dungeon. It just looks like that kind of place, you know, especially with the concept of having like 2 of every animal sort of thing, like because they were trying to create an arc essentially to go to the moon and you know, to leave the planet. So it makes sense that there would be some kind of holding facility there or hidden areas. It just feels like it could be very, very believable. Perhaps like other shafts were dug to try and get to the Ethereal Sea to contact Hydaelyn and accidentally went into some ancient, forgotten parts of Sharlayan, or perhaps even the Ethereal Sea itself could be the deep dungeon, as we saw in design during our run of the level 89 dungeon as part of the MSQ, known as the Itioscope. That particular dungeon was full of crystals that we would traverse. How cool would it be if you had a deep dungeon where you traversed with teleports between crystal locations deep in the Ethereal Sea, like the remnants of, you know, souls inside the Ethereal Sea as the enemies. You could have bosses of, you know, recreations of things we've already cleared before in the game come back. It would be a great way of recycling enemies that we already have without adding too much budget into really creating new monsters, and all you would have to do is change the transparency down to like 20% to make them look like ghosts. It's as simple as that. You know, it could be quite, you know, easy to guess if that was the case. The only major question then that could put a hamper on any of this is what levels they might go for. Will it be 71 to 80 or 81 to 90? That is the biggest question. Will they try to cover the fact they missed a deep dungeon for Shadowbringers, which is incredibly unlikely, but, you know, has a chance, a small chance, and try and bridge that gap? Or will they more realistically do as they've done before, making the levels relevant for the current expansion, which they've done each time so far? I would 90% say it will be the latter, but it would be interesting to see if they decide otherwise, as that would obviously change where the deep dungeon would and could be located based on starting level. I think in all likelihood the obvious guess would probably be Old Sharlayan, maybe even the Ethereal Sea. It just kind of feels the most obvious, but exactly for that reason, I kinda hope they do something that none of us would expect. I don't know, like, make it a deep dungeon in Ultima Thule, space deep dungeon with weird spectral levels and alien monsters and amazing backdrops with nebulas and planets colliding and black holes. That would be just insane, wouldn't it? What would you like to see then with them doing in the next deep dungeon? What would you like to see, and what have I overlooked? Probably a very obvious clue as to where it is, but I love speculating about this sort of stuff, and we'll see if we're right. Let me know. I'm incredibly excited to see what they come up with. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time.